Once upon a time, the hierarchy at tech companies was pretty simple. You had engineers, project managers, directors, vice presidents, and the C-suite. Back in the day, Google's co-founder Larry Page thought that even this was too much middle management. He felt that executive leadership should have direct contact with engineers, so he fired every single project manager at Google. This arrangement didn't last too long, but it was clear where Larry Page stood on the issue. But since then, things have become the exact opposite at big tech. These companies have been completely overtaken by middle management. Just take a look at Google's modern management hierarchy. They currently have Program Manager 2, Program Manager 3, Senior Program Manager, Staff Program Manager, Senior Staff Program Manager, Director, Senior Director, Vice President, Senior Vice President, a C-suite for the sector, and finally the C-suite for the actual company. If you're an entry-level manager at Google, there's literally 10 management layers between you and Sundar Pichai, if not more. And if you thought that Google was bad, just take a look at Microsoft. They have so many levels that they gave up on giving each of them names. Instead, they just have a bunch of numbers. And these companies have not only expanded management vertically, but they've also expanded management horizontally. You see, Program Manager is just one type of manager at big tech. Adjacent to them, you've got the Technical Program Manager hierarchy, which has all the exact same positions. And adjacent to that, you've got the Product Manager hierarchy, and adjacent to that, you've got the Software Engineering Manager hierarchy. Nowadays, these hierarchies even apply to roles like software engineering. Back in the day, there was just engineer and then senior engineer, and after that, you had to pivot to management to keep moving up. But today, you've got Software Engineer 2, Software Engineer 3, Senior Software Engineer, Staff Software Engineer, Senior Staff Software Engineer, Principal Engineer, Distinguished Engineer, and Fellow. It's the same thing with hardware engineers, data scientists, solution architects, business system analysts, and basically every other role at these companies, a lot of which they invented themselves. But it seems that things are finally starting to change. Just earlier this year, Instagram laid off 60 people, which in the grand scheme of Meta's layoffs is nothing. But the thing that was unique about this round was that Instagram didn't just cut people across the board. Instead, they cut out a whole vertical of management, technical program managers. Google and Amazon have also begun to make big cuts to middle management. So it seems that these companies are finally leaning down. But how did things even get this bad? How did Google go from not even wanting a single project manager to having dozens and dozens of management titles? And what does this mean for the future of these bloated giants? Taking a look back, the position that really kicked off this whole trend with middle management was product managers. And that story takes us back to a legend named Neil McElroy at Procter & Gamble in 1931. Fun fact, McElroy was the guy who would eventually oversee the creation of NASA, but back in 1931, he was just a marketing guy at P&G who was in charge of helping the company grow their headcount. And in that vein, he would come up with a new job title, Product Manager, which largely started off as just a justification for P&G to hire more people. Talk about a deadweight position. But while product management started off as a deadweight, over time it did develop into a somewhat serious role, but it was nothing like the modern definition of product manager. Originally, product managers were branding guys who were in charge of keeping a close eye on consumers. Their jobs was to get feedback from customers and help the company refine the product, place, price, and promotion to maximize sales. So really, they were marketing guys who were judged based on how much they were able to improve sales and profits. But when this role was imported into tech companies, the role completely changed. At the core, product managers were still in charge of keeping a close pulse on customers and implementing their feedback, but implementation was completely different at tech companies. I mean, just think about it. What sort of feedback do you think customers were gonna give about something like P&G's toothpaste? Maybe that it's too minty, or that the packaging is a bit confusing, or that the price is too high. You know, simple stuff like that. But what happens when you ask for feedback on tech products like Gmail? Customers might say something like, I would like to send files that are larger than 25 megabytes. It might involve creating a complex cloud storage solution like Google Drive and then conveying to customers how Drive can be used in conjunction with Gmail. A lot of users probably won't get it on the first go-around, so you'll have to refine the UI and put out help articles and FAQs and so on. In other words, the role of tech product managers wasn't just to convey user needs to the tech team, but visualize how user needs could even be addressed using technical solutions, which was usually a lot easier said than done. Over time, this led to product managers becoming product owners, or essentially mini CEOs for each product. For example, at Instagram, you might have a PM for search, and a PM for the newsfeed, and a PM for stories, and so on. And slowly, these PMs built out executive teams for each product. First, they hired a CTO type of person who could actually implement their vision, and this is what would become known as technical program managers. Then, they hired a COO type of person who could handle general administration and business development, and this is what would become known as program managers. And before you knew it, things would get way out of hand. Before you knew it, the Gmail push notification team alone would have a product manager, a technical program manager, a software engineering manager, several engineers, and a couple of supporting roles like analysts and marketing guys. And this was the same case with each and every feature across the entirety of the company. Zooming out a bit, you had this same sort of hierarchy at a higher level. Put together a few of these teams and you had the Gmail iOS app team, for which you had staff product managers, staff program managers, staff engineers, and so on. Zoom out a bit more and put together the iOS team, Android team, and the web team, and you got the Gmail team, for which you had a director of product management, a director of program management, and principal engineers. Zoom out even more and you get VPs and C-suite guys and so on and so forth. While all of this might seem a bit excessive, in the early days, it actually made sense to essentially have small executive teams and a bunch of engineers for each and every feature, product, and sector. The reality was that each feature was so nuanced that all of them played a serious role in bringing these products to market and developing them further. This is why Google was able to develop so many complex products at the same time, whether it's YouTube, Gmail, Chrome, Maps, Android, Drive, and so on. But while this sort of team structure is extremely valuable for an up-and-coming company bringing a bunch of new products to market, it doesn't work so well after the initial go-to-market effort is over. All of a sudden, you've got a Gmail team with 500 people, 200 to 300 of which are just managers. When in reality, all you need is 100 people or so to continue maintaining and refining Gmail, given that everything has already been built out. At least with Gmail, it's an extremely popular service used by nearly 2 billion people. So while a bloated headcount might not be that optimal, it can easily be supported financially. When you apply this same mindset to new endeavors that don't yet have proven traction, you run into some serious trouble. This is how you end up with a $1.2 billion project that looks like 2006 Wii graphics and only ends up attracting 38 active users. The problem is that the vast majority of that $1.2 billion was likely not spent on actual development or engineering, but rather high-paid managers managing other high-paid managers. Fortunately, it seems that after burning tens of billions of dollars only to get lackluster results, Zuckerberg is finally coming to this same realization. That's why he cut a quarter of Meta's workforce and is cutting out entire echelons of management and hierarchy, which brings us to the question of, can bloated giants be fixed? I know this video has just been all doom and gloom about middle management at big tech, but the good news is that there are notable exceptions who have not fallen for this trap, specifically Apple and Nvidia. To this day, Apple only has a couple layers of management despite being a $3 trillion giant. On the engineering side, you've got Manager 1, Manager 2, Senior Manager, Director, Senior Director, VP, and Senior VP. And there is no C-suite for engineering. You know the top guy with the good hair, Craig Federighi? Well, he's not CTO. Apple doesn't have a CTO. Craig is actually Senior Vice President. In other words, if you're a senior manager at Apple, there's only 3 layers of management between you and Craig himself. Even if you're an entry-level manager, there's only 5 layers of management between yourself and Craig. It's the same thing with Nvidia, but Even more so, Nvidia only has a total of 26,000 employees despite being a trillion-dollar giant. And this is very much a result of Jensen Huang's management style. Jensen himself has 50 direct reports. For perspective, the average executive only has 10 direct reports. So by taking on this many direct reports, Jensen has eliminated the need to hire 4 or 5 more C-suite executives. And this doesn't just stop at Jensen either. His management style naturally trickles down the entire company. I mean, just think about it. If you're the CTO of Nvidia and you interact with Jensen on a regular basis and you see that he has 50 direct reports as CEO, it would feel quite weird if you only had 10 or 15 direct reports yourself. Maybe you don't go for 50 like Jensen, but it's likely that you go for a comparable number like 40, and the same thing happens at the next level of management. A VP underneath the CEO is not gonna settle for only 10 direct reports when his boss has 40. So maybe the VP goes for 30 and the director goes for 25 and regular managers go for 20. And all of a sudden, your entire company has 70 to 80% less management than your peers. This is precisely what happened at Nvidia. They only have a fifth of the employees that Intel does, but they're worth 10 times as much. So you could argue that Nvidia is 50 times as efficient as Intel. Even if you want to throw out the recent run-up Nvidia has experienced and say that they're equivalent to the size of Intel, Nvidia is still 5 times as efficient. And this insane discrepancy in efficiency is exactly why Nvidia has been able to pivot from gaming GPUs to mining GPUs to data centers to now being the king of AI hardware. Meanwhile, Intel wasn't even able to capitalize on the mobile trend, much less the AI trend. And if you haven't realized yet, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft are the Intel in this story, the bloated established giants. Can these guys pivot and become more like Apple and Nvidia? Well, I think it's quite possible that Zuckerberg can do so with Meta. He's already made the massive 25% cut that's required for such a pivot, and as the founder of Meta, there's no question that he's highly motivated to do what's best for the company long term. When it comes to Google, Microsoft, and Amazon though, it's a far different story. While they've all made cuts in the tens of thousands just like Meta, compared to their headcount, it's usually not even 5%. Moreover, I think their vanilla CEOs are much more interested in saving face in the short term and optimizing for stock performance as opposed to long-term fundamental growth. So it's likely that at this point, they're just lame ducks that are waiting to be overtaken by smaller, more efficient companies that are a fraction of the size like OpenAI, and that right there is the fate of big tech companies that are drowning in middle management. One of the main reasons for that is the vanilla CEOs at some of these companies. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.